Hi everyone, it's Elizabeth here. So today I'm doing this relationship video, some advice for men on some qualities to look for in every woman. This perspective is coming from somebody who's been in relationships. I was with somebody for almost 10 years. That included 6.5 years of marriage. I've been around the world. I'm kind of a rare bird myself, so this is interesting for me to talk about because I don't think I'm like most girls. Like, I'm definitely not a mainstream human, but I definitely, believe in God and I love God and things like that. And so it's like I'm trying to provide some voice and wisdom and some thoughts to men to not only help build their character, but also for people to start developing more conscious and healthy relationships, regardless of if it has a religious or a spiritual component into it. Like I mentioned in my other video for advice for women on what to look for in men, I work, in fitness and with health coaching to a lot of very logical tech and business people who tend to sometimes use more common sense and logic, and they don't have a spiritual foundation. So those people as well are also craving some form of deeper and more intimate relationships. And it's not my purpose or point to push people to find God, but just to help them start to develop more quality relationships and love into their life. So this is interesting for me to talk about because not only I am a woman, but it is a little difficult for me to talk about as well because there are so many different layers of women. I've been hurt by men a lot in the romantic realm of life, and it's hard for me to put down other women because some of them just might not be far along in their path of either well-being or in some maturity and development, some soul development in their life. So anyways, I guess I'll just kind of jump right into it. So the first quality to look for is if she is more of a natural girl versus a superficial / gold digger. So there's so much information on, this whole like red pill movement for men. Like, some of it I agree with, a lot of it I don't, because I think it's still pushing people to think that all women are gold diggers, as well as, it's telling men not to put much effort in, and if you're not sleeping with the girls by like a certain date, it's like move on to the next one. I don't think this is healthy at all. A girl like me doesn't want to have sex with a stranger. They want to have some form of a relationship or friendship as the baseline level to develop that emotional intimacy with somebody and move forward with a relationship. So a very natural girl is not going to be invested, or I'm not going to say not impressed, but she's just not going to be overly invested in your material abundance. There are some things, like, for example, a natural girl will judge you or be more discerning of your character and some of the things that you do in life versus the quality of clothes that you wear or the types of cars that you drive and things like that. There are different levels of men. So higher level businessmen are kind of more of that aristocratic level. Like, they're going to be dealing with women that's on a completely different level versus some girl who's just like a hippie. Let's put it that way. So the choices in your women are going to be very, very different. And I think that, definitely a girl that presents herself well is I think a nice thing. But when you're looking for, a woman, it's like, is she judging you based on your job title? Is she more invested to know how much money you make? Does she never pitch in for a date or things like that? I think that if you have a natural girl, that girl is trying to show you more of the sincerity that comes from her heart, and she will offer to pay for herself and things like that. That does kind of show some level of independence. But she doesn't want to be taken advantage of. I do think to some degree the guy does have to put more effort in and a little bit more some of the resources a little bit more, just because that's how our society is structured to some degree. And I think that's how nature works. Nature in itself, like, you know, the guy is out there puffing, like the bird, right? He's puffing up his chest and doing his little flutter call and things like that to attract the mate. So I think you, depending on what type of girl that you want or like, I think it's very important to kind of look at, is she a superficial girl, very much only interested in you in terms of your outer appearance, the kind of skin deep appearance, or is she more invested in what's going on in your heart? That's a girl that's a little bit more natural and deeper and is a little bit more connected to the soul. Is the girl grateful for time, your time and resources? I think if a man is putting in the time and the resources, that is a good sign for a girl, and I think somebody should be very appreciative of that. So does she say thank you? You know, does she express her gratitude on how thankful she is that you, I don't know, bought her a drink or a coffee, or you just picked her up and things like that? I think there are times when people have a bad day or they get kind of blindsided and they forget to say thank you. But, you know, it's like, does she, if she never says thank you or is never grateful for what you're giving her, like, that's not a good sign. And do you want to be with that type of girl? I had some conversations with some male security guards at a building that I teach at, and the one guy goes, man, he's like, I bought this girl flowers, I bought her yellow roses, and then she got pissed that they were yellow, and I looked at him and I just said, dump her. Because you know what? If she was more pissed about the roses not being red because red signifies love and yellow signifies friendship or something like that, I guess to some degree that's important, but I think a lot of guys don't think about stuff like that, and so they're not as like deep as women are in terms of like certain symbolic things. So I just thought in that situation, I was like, if she couldn't be appreciative for the mere gesture of you buying flowers, is she going to be appreciative of the other stuff that you do in your relationship or in life? And so I was like, just get rid of her. Like, screw that. Is that the type of woman that you want to be with? Because eventually you'll never be, she might not ever be satisfied. So, you know, have that conversation. All right, another quality to look for in every woman is her emotional stability and her depth. This is one I have a difficult time to deal with because I know a lot of women have gone through so much trauma from their fathers, from other relationships, especially if she's been in some form of an abusive relationship, whether that's physically or sexually and things like that. It does require a certain man in a woman's life to be able to deal with some things that are very deep on the emotional level, but how does she handle certain things? You know, guys, like, some guys just don't want to deal with women at all, and it's like, well, you might as well date a man, but the reality is, like, gay men are more dramatic sometimes than women are. Does she handle things in a diplomatic manner? Can she see things from both sides of the story? This is where men and women have a huge disconnect, and it is very important for, you know, a woman to have some form of empathy, to be able to understand both sides of the story, but also to be able to present problems in a more diplomatic way, that it's just not coming out from like these very visceral emotional reactions. And, you know, the thing that you might want to look for, depends on if it's important to you, is her emotional depth. You know, there are very intellectual people out there who don't go in the depths of their emotions, and that's what maybe some guys want. And there are some men that crave a woman who has a little bit more depth. It's like that heart of a poet that's a deep thinker and stuff like that. So those are some things to kind of gauge and have some quality for. I talked a little bit about this, but the fourth quality is, does she ever offer to pitch in for a date, or does she, you know, do something that's sweet and endearing, such as like make you food? I've learned a long time ago in college, you know, my boyfriend in college was like a Cancer, and so the one way I knew the zodiac so well, he loved food and loved cooking at home. Like, our first date was actually him cooking me a homemade meal on my 21st birthday, and so it's like, one way that I knew that I could get into his heart was through his stomach, which was by cooking for him, which was great because it was an affordable thing to do in college, and it came from the heart. And cooking is a very sweet and endearing thing that isn't necessarily like a huge expensive meal. Like, women don't generally make as much money as men do, especially us women who are not in the high level corporate tech jobs. So it's like, you can't expect a woman to be able, like, men eat more and drink more than women. So it's like, I can't, if a guy drinks like 5 beers, I can't put forth $70 of picking up in a tab for his 5 beers and my like 1 or 2 glasses of wine. You know what I mean? Like, but does she offer to buy you a drink? I've read this or heard this before. It's like, some guys are like, man, I just wish she would like offer me. So it's like, does she offer to pitch in? If you guys go out somewhere, you know, if you're paying for gas, does she maybe buy some food? You know, it's like trying to make things a little bit more level and equal to make it show that she's not just trying to take advantage of you for your money and resources. All right, is her heart pure, and what is her nurturing level of femininity? This is such a huge debate that can go into a very long conversation, but I think a very masculine man is going to be attracted to a very feminine woman. This is super dependent on the culture of where people are. I'm not talking about, you know, the culture of Japan versus, you know, Latvia or anything like that. I'm talking like, there are various levels of femininity and masculinity. Like the Burning Man community, they are attracted to a certain type of woman, and, you know, Christian conservative men are going to be attracted to, you know, a more modest, different type of girl. So it's like the various communities that we're in, you know, the artist communities, they're going to be attracted to a different level of femininity. More higher level power business types, they're going to be attracted to a different type of femininity. And so, you know, obviously you have some girls that are like, you know, they dress very bohemian and earthly, and then others are just more like they're coming out of H&M, and then others that are just more business orientated. So there's various levels, but it's like, how sincere and genuine is her heart? I think that's something that you can naturally gauge just by having some brief conversations or just looking at somebody. I think a lot of times the eyes are the gateway to somebody's soul. And so, you know, does she have a very nurturing aspect to her? Like, it depends on what you're looking for, but I think those are really sweet and endearing qualities of women to have. And there are some guys, especially guys that, you know, they don't want to have children. They are looking for a more independent woman. And, you know, like that nurturing aspect doesn't really matter to them. They're just looking for like an adventure buddy. And I think that's completely fine and normal. So, yeah, anyways, those are some thoughts, is just to look at how pure her heart is, on her being genuine and sincere and what she's looking for in life. Level of independence. This is a huge topic that could be a separate video in its own. I've had various male clients and friends that have been with power-tripped independent women, and it crumbled their relationship because it's like the woman was too independent. But then the other end of the spectrum is like, you have some women who are, I don't know, like a damsel in distress, or they're just like damaged goods, where they are chronically codependent on a guy. So it's like the two ends of the spectrum can freak guys out, in my perception. I could be wrong. So it's like that balancing point. It's like, if she, like, what level of independence do you find attractive? There are certain degrees of independence that make men feel less like a man because they can't do their job or, you know, do things based on how they are as men. Like, for example, in a married couple, there are some men out there that want to split the bills with the woman. I guess there's nothing wrong with that. It's just if two people are in alignment with it. But then there are some men out there who actually feel less like a man because they are splitting the bills. It's like they want to be that provider, and they want to put forth their resources because it makes them feel more manly. And the thing is, I think it's really important in relationships for two people to grow as individuals, but together as a couple. And so you know, if you're an independent guy, you might want to have a woman who can stand on her own 2 feet. I mean, if she, you know, men and women are the same in this sense. Like, if somebody can't hold a job, like, that's not really an attractive quality. Or if they're constantly, like, bouncing around and being too unstable, like, that can freak, I think, anybody out. As a woman, if a guy is so unstable, if they're just, like, moving around all the time, or like they're in this apartment and they're moving in that one, or like they're going to this part of the world, you know, that kind of like wandering nomadic spirit, like that can be fun to date, but I don't, you know, in terms of like mating, that's really concerning. And so I've been judged before for sure by guys who just wanted a normal traditional Midwest life of like marriage and children and have a dog, and they were like, oh, you might want to travel the world again, so I'm not going to date you. So I was like, oh man, like I was like, God, I'm getting judged again. But I guess where I'm going with this is like there are some men, you want to have a woman that can kind of stand on her own 2 feet, right? I mean, to some degree, that's an attractive quality. We have no choice as women today but to be independent. So there is certain levels of independence that are just too much. I'm just going to put it that way. All right. So these are some thoughts that I have. This is not going into the sexual part of it at all. I think there are just, if you are at a point where you want a serious relationship, if you're looking for marriage with somebody, I think these are definitely some qualities to look for in a female. Obviously, men are very visual creatures. They can get very blinded by mermaids, who are really attractive, beautiful girls on the outside, but they're very deceptive and manipulating on the inside, and they don't have good intentions. So I think you have to really find out if a girl has good intentions. And I think with the lists that I've talked to, especially, you know, trying to have a little bit more fairness and equality in the sense of, you know, showing a guy that she's not trying to just use you for your resources, and that she's thankful for the resources that you do invest in her. I think that is a very good thing. And I could be completely off on this topic, but at least that's kind of how I navigate certain things in my life as well. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any qualities that you think are really important, I think it's very, please write them in the comment below. I think it's important for us to all help each other. We all come from different lenses and life experiences and perceptions that, you know, what one man finds attractive in qualities is maybe not necessarily the same as somebody else. And I think it's really important for us to all have this conversation with each other so we can start developing more quality men, but also just better relationships in general, and that we can start finding quality people. If you'd like, please subscribe below. You can also support me on Patreon. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and talk to you guys soon. Bye.